All right, so you heard Kayleigh talking about the breaking news point that came up during the news conference. Well, here it is. Moments ago, during that news conference with President-elect Trump, he was asked about this happening. Judge Eileen Cannon blocked Special Counsel Jack Smith from releasing his report on his election case against Trump. I want to bring in now Justice correspondent David Spunt to catch us up on the facts of all of this. So we got the kind of the one-line report on this. Fill it in for us, David.
Well, Harris, it's a three-page order from federal judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida. Ironically, it came on the docket a few minutes after President-elect Trump was praising Judge Cannon and saying that she had the courage to handle the case the way she did. But the bottom line is this regarding this breaking news. Special Counsel Jack Smith, who's going to be out of a job in just a few days because the Justice Department cannot prosecute a sitting president, will release, or at least plans to release, 2 volumes of a report. The first is the election interference case that he brought against then former president, now President-elect Trump. The other is the classified documents case. Smith failed at both of those for different reasons, so neither of those went to trial. Now Jack Smith wants to have his parting word with a report. It's not unusual for special counsels to put out reports. This is a bit unusual in this case because the subject of both reports, Harris and everyone there on the couch, is the president that's going to be taking the oath of office in less than 2 weeks. So Judge Cannon told the Justice Department to hold off from releasing the report until the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals makes some sort of decision. What's not clear, and I want to be clear, is if that means both volumes of the report. And speaking to sources, I'm told that DOJ is holding off right now on releasing any parts of the report because they don't know exactly what this order means. So we're told Jack Smith is preparing a lengthy, voluminous report in 2 sections, 2 volumes, and Judge Cannon in this 3-page order says that the DOJ is being told to hold off on releasing any reports until the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals weighs in. Harris?
Just real quickly, and forgive me if I missed this in your reporting from even earlier, but what is the time period for something like that? Could that kind of an appeal happen before January 20th?
Yeah, absolutely, it could. What I'm being told by sources is the classified documents case, that's still an active prosecution because Walt Nauta and Carlos de Oliveira, Trump employees, are still being charged there. Of course, they could be pardoned after he takes the oath of office. So that part of the report regarding the classified documents may come out later. The January 6th election interference, the whole case in Washington, D.C., that is gone. That is history. So we presumably could see that report sooner than the classified documents section. But I think DOJ right now, specifically the special counsel, is trying to figure out how to respond to the judge, and we may get some more clarity later.
Great reporting as always, David Spunt. Thank you very much. I want to bring in Fox News legal editor Kerri Urbahn. So, Kerri, we've all been watching to see what this would be, and the initial reaction from the incoming President Trump was that this is really big news. Now, he often will say that if something's a victory. What would be victorious for him in this?
For these reports not to be released. Now, I have a couple of thoughts on this. One, as David mentioned, there are 2 reports, one pertaining to the classified documents case and one pertaining to the January 6th case. On the classified docs, Harris, I don't know how the Department of Justice, in good conscience, could release that at all, given the fact that there are still 2 defendants in that case whose case is going forward. So to release that report to the public as their case is active, I think would be fundamentally unfair and very prejudicial to their case as that moves forward. Now, of course, Donald Trump could get into office and he could pardon those 2, but it doesn't change the fact that their case is alive and active, and offering to the public pages and pages of information would, of course, be prejudicial to them. On the January 6th case, I would argue that Jack Smith has already issued that report, and he did so in the beginning of October when he issued that 165-page filing with Judge Chutkan. I think people perceive that as an attempt to influence the election, since he was effectively regurgitating everything we already knew. So that volume 2, that other report about January 6th, is basically going to be identical to what he has been releasing for the last few years. So yes, it is big news that Judge Cannon said, wait, we're going to pause on issuing these reports at all in total as we work out, this, we figure out what we're going to do, because there is an active case with these 2 defendants. But she could delay it long enough till inauguration, then we see what would happen there.
So just real quickly, you made the same note that I did about Jack Smith and what could happen moving forward. with the possibility that he's issuing the same report twice. So I've been wondering, well, what would the public see that they haven't seen? I would imagine it would be redacted.
Oh, I don't think anything. And if the special counsel regulations does require a special counsel to file a report with the Attorney General, but it is up to the Attorney General whether he or she decides to release that report. And, Attorney General Garland could look at that and say, look, we have basically been issued this report for the last 3 years. This man is president. These cases are gone. Enough. We're going to start over, and we're just going to do away with these things.
All right. Let me interject here. The New York case, arguments underway right now. Where do you put that? And the threat of, well, at some point in the future, there could be sentencing?
Yeah, well, look, I think it's fundamentally unfair that Judge Merchan gave President-elect Trump a week to, go through the appeals courts to make his case before the sentencing on Friday. I mean, that's very hard to do, to go through that entire process and hope that a court intervenes in a handful of days. But right now, Todd Blanche, who is set to be the Deputy Attorney General at DOJ, the #2 spot, he's at the appellate court in the state of New York, and he is arguing that Judge Merchan's rejection of President Trump's immunity arguments was wrong. And as such, he wants to continue to appeal that and also pause the sentencing date as he appeals that immunity argument.
All right, we got to be super, super quick here. Does Trump ever reach a point where this is not coming at him once he takes office?
Well, it really depends what happens in this business records case. If he's successful on his appeal, that case, he could eventually be vindicated. But given that he's somewhat at the start of that appeals process, we're still looking at some time going forward.
All right. Kerri Kupec, always great to get your perspective on these things. Real quickly, we'll come back out to the couch. Your top line thoughts.
It's interesting because you heard lawfare mentioned by the former president, and it does feel like that. We know today there was essentially Merrick Garland and a filing put forward by Jack Smith where we learned that before January 10th, Garland would make this decision, and then that was kind of kneecapped by Judge Cannon's order. We'll see how that plays out. But the whole time I listened to the former President Trump talk about lawfare, I couldn't divorce myself from thinking about the Washington Post article that came out 7 days ago. It was based on 24 sources, Biden's close allies, that said he was very frustrated with Garland, regretted choosing him, wished Garland would have been more aggressive in prosecuting Trump and less aggressive in prosecuting Hunter Biden. It goes on to cite Democrats who say, had this gone differently, had Merrick Garland not been here, maybe it would have affected the election.
So it's so interesting, Brian, because I'm always wondering about what Kayleigh's talking about, and that's making everything so personal and vindictive. Like, does it ever get to be about the American people?
I'm not sure. And the thing is, we don't really know the whole story about how much Joe Biden was actually doing and how much some
we won't know now.
We're going to know soon.
You think we will?
I think we will. We're beginning to get the story of a guy that has bad days where you can't talk to him and good days where he gives you a good hour.
Nothing that can be adjudicated.
Right. True. I'm not looking to put an 82-year-old man on trial, but when it comes to Hunter, remember, he had a sweetheart deal. It was that judge that blew up that deal that was going to put him on the glide path to probation for his gun charge, then opened up everything else when the facts came out. The facts are a problem with Joe Biden. That's what he's mad at Garland for finding the facts on his son. And now we have pictures in the New York Post last week. We're going to go back next week that show he was all over those deals in China. That's the story that he wants to stop. As far as these two cases, we're done. That horse has left the barn. It's not coming back, and we're not looking for it.
So, Emily, talk to me about what could happen with Hunter Biden. And the only reason we care is because of his dad. Because as Brian said, who wants to put an 82-year-old man on trial? Robert Hur didn't.
Right, that's right. Exactly right. Well, looking forward, I think there are still things left to be prosecuted. So I would say wait for that. But I really want to make a point about Judge Cannon, if I may, which is that reminder that she was the one that ruled that the special counsel was unlawfully elected. And that is currently still under appeal in the 11th Circuit. And what she cited in this current decision was the fact that there would be irreparable harm potentially done if Special Counsel Jack Smith's report was released. So I think it's just important to note that here we have a judge that's essentially saying do not let the genie out of the bottle, because right now that's a temporary situation. Depending on if the 11th Circuit overrules her, then this may actually be revived, because remember, the DOJ continued its case against the two other co-defendants, right, while dismissing it against President Trump. So notwithstanding his status as current president, that potentially could blow up again. So dang right, this special report could have disastrous consequences.
Could he pre-pardon those people?
Pre-pardon?
I know, it's not really a word, it's a hyphenation.
I mean, no, sorry, I mean,
You know what I mean, though.
Right.
Could he step in?
No, you can't pardon for things in the future.
But Biden did.
But Biden did for durations. I mean, I can't say, I wish I could, because I would,
I
would
was just
rob a
curious.
bank. But
hey, look, you know what the release, though, potentially, Kennedy, of any kind of report like this, even though I think we have seen pretty much what Jack Smith has. So he did a reissuance here, and we don't get to see it.
Yeah,
that's
it's a legal
okay.
version of OnlyFans.
But
we know
gives
what's
those-
there, even if we don't subscribe.
Right. That's a good point. Do we get our money back? So those liberal networks, it gives them those talking points that they ran with for years.
And I think that's what this is. I think that it is a political gift to try and do as much damage as possible to the incoming president, because that has been the focus of the Justice Department throughout the entire Biden administration. During Trump's first term, he had the entire establishment against him. That's all they were doing, was obsessively trying to find ways to impeach him. And then when he was out of office, they were just trying to legally cancel him through every coordinated avenue. That failed because he was reelected, and they had to drop a lot of those cases, especially because of the Supreme Court precedent. So now the only thing left to do is try and throw a grenade and hope the shrapnel does the political damage that they weren't able to do with every other avenue. That is not the job of special counsel. That should not be the precedent. That should not be his aim and what he should be doing.
It's also not the job of a complicit liberal-leaning media. It's not their job either. And that
They're
truly
paying
is...
for it in subscribers and ratings, and we saw that on MSNBC the week after the election. So this is not what people want. It's not what they have wanted. It is a disservice to the American people, and they're finding out the hard way, but they're still doing it.
Brian, your last thought.
My last thought is Trump made a lot of news today, and his foreign policy, Witkoff moving in that region, for a guy that's not president yet, he's certainly doing a lot.
Well, somebody has to be president right now.
Because basically all Joe Biden is doing is having a tantrum through his offshore drilling and his other thing that he's doing with the release of these Gitmo detainees, who are as bad as it gets.
Yeah, and the thinking that the recidivism that is alive and well among them, they will hit anything that we love or support around the world that they can. And there's still 15 of them left at Gitmo. So Biden may release more to make Obama's dream. Remember, he wanted Gitmo closed, and Biden has furthered that now. So he's 15 away. We'll be watching all of it, covering